Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar in association with LoveAdmin. So my name is Cerys Keneally and I am going to be sharing with you this morning all about how you can get your business into schools and nurseries. So this is being recorded, and thank you very much those of you who have managed to join us live this morning. So there will be an opportunity for those of you who have joined us live to ask some questions at the end. So please do feel free to make notes as we go through, so that you have got some questions to answer at the end. So this is all about getting your business into schools and nurseries, no matter what type of activity business you have. I understand we have a range of providers here. It is for schools and nurseries. With a little twist, I'm going to be talking about how you can do that while having a bigger impact on children's lives together today, because that's why I'm here, and hopefully that's why you're here as well. So just a little bit about me before we get started, just so you can understand where today's strategies come from, because I am going to be sharing some very sort of specific methodologies with you today, and it's important that you understand where these come from, because there's no right or wrong way really to approach schools or nurseries. You've got to find the way that is right for you, but this is the way that I found was right for me. It's the way that I started teaching to hundreds of other children's activity providers a few years ago with great results. So you will notice at the top of the screen there a very shy looking child. That's me, age 6. And I was very shy. I was very shy at school. I found it difficult to make friends at school, but I had a whole other life outside of school with my extracurricular activities. Did a lot of dance, drama, music, art. Very, very fortunate to be able to be sent to lots of extracurricular activities outside of school. But how fantastic would it have been for that shy little 6-year-old to have been able to take part in more of these activities in school, to have my education enriched more by external providers. So I really want to reach the children that are perhaps not as advantaged as I was and can't get to these outside of school activities, but actually we can reach a much bigger audience in this way and reach those children that have only got the opportunities in front of them in school as well. So I'm very passionate about that, helping enrich children's education. Fast forward to the picture of me holding the bouquet. So I was a primary school teacher, and during that time I was also a subject lead, which meant I was sometimes responsible for bringing in external providers to enrich my subject. So that's actually a picture of me in Bangkok, because my teaching took me all over the world. When I came back to the UK, I realized that I couldn't just specialize in dance and teach dance every day like I had been in Bangkok. Did actually need to teach all of the other subjects as well, and sort of had seen the grass as greener, if you like, and wanted to understand whether I could actually be a bit of a dance specialist in primary schools and nurseries in the UK, but having a business to do that, and actually having a team and partnering other dance teachers with schools and nurseries as well. So that's what I set out to do. And this is where there was a time period of 11 years of trying and testing absolutely every different method to get into schools and nurseries as I could. Some worked really well, some were absolute flops. And I will only be sharing with you the strategies that worked really, really well this morning. Because I did have a lot of success in my business quite early on, my mentor at the time trained me up to be one of her business coaches. And I was responsible for coaching hundreds of her clients in the health, wellness and fitness sector. And it was when I moved away here now to Wales in 2017 that I actually looked to combine some of this. And I said to a group of dance teachers that I was keeping in touch with, if I set up an online business, what would you want to learn? And they said to me, I just want to know how you got your business into so many schools and nurseries. And I said, oh, can't really teach you that, because I just emailed them. And they said, no, there must be more to it. There must be more to it, because I've tried emailing schools in the past and I didn't get a response. I think that head teachers are too busy to get back to me. And by the way, I don't want to cold call and I don't have time for it. So I was like, right, well, send me your emails and let's have a look. Let's see what's different about your emails to the emails I was sending that was getting my dance business into schools and nurseries. And it became clear there were some very common issues. There were some very common factors that meant that they weren't really maximizing their chances of getting a response. So things like using the first paragraph of their their email to talk all about themselves instead of solving a problem. So we're going to talk about that today and why that could potentially be an issue. Things like trying to sell in your initial email instead of presenting a high value offer. We're going to talk about why that's an issue. Just generally having an extremely long email. We're going to talk about why that's an issue. The structure of their email, needed some tweaks. So we're going to talk about the structure of your email to maximize your chances of getting a response. And 9 times out of 10, they had not been following up. They didn't want to pester these schools. So they weren't following up. They weren't boosting their chances of getting a response. So the good news for you today on this webinar is we are going to be changing all of that for you. So I would like to share with you now 5 ways that you could be working with schools and nurseries to start having a bigger impact on children's lives this year. So for some of you, you'll be familiar with how the school system works. For some of you, you won't have any connections with schools whatsoever, except for perhaps the school your children go to. So we're going to talk about some of this now. Now, perhaps the most obvious one is your extracurricular clubs. So extracurricular clubs, they're not just after school, by the way. They might be before school, typically from 8 a.m. till 8:45 a.m, or they may even be at lunchtime as well, depending on, if you need hall space, which a lot of people who are in the webinar today will most probably require hall space, then you're looking at the slightly bigger schools where the school is not just using one hall for dinners, so that you can actually get in and use some space at lunchtime as well. So those are potential barriers for lunchtime, but it's still a very viable option. I have had gymnastics clubs and dance clubs happening at lunchtime, definitely in the schools that could facilitate that. So extracurricular clubs is obviously one big factor, but if you're already fully booked in that typical popular 3:30 to 4:30 slot, then yes, you could potentially be looking at before school clubs. Also, if a school comes back to you and says, oh no, we're fully booked after school, you can suggest to them a before school club because they may not have considered it. And this is a way that you can potentially add 5 new clubs to your timetable, even if it's just you in the business. So this is something to consider. It's also obviously a way, if you've got team, of getting your team some extra hours as well. So number 1 is your extracurricular clubs. Now, if you're thinking about reaching a bigger audience and that there are some children that are just never going to be fortunate enough to attend your community classes outside of school in the evenings and at the weekend, perhaps with extracurricular clubs, in some instances, there are children who are eligible for things like pupil premium. And pupil premium will ensure that those children who are eligible for free school meals can potentially also take part in a club that they wouldn't ordinarily have the advantage to do. So that's something worth considering as well. That's something that the school is able to allocate to those children through the local authority. The other thing to consider is a lot of people in here, and I appreciate this won't be everybody, a lot of people in here will be teaching under a PE, school sports or physical activity subject. And if that is the case and you are targeting England primary schools in particular, then for you might want to look into the PE and sport premium, because schools will have around about £16,000 a year plus £10 per eligible pupil. So depending on school size, depends kind of how much they have, but they all get this funding in England specifically. And they can use it to add variety to the extracurricular timetable. They can also use it to target their least active pupils, the ones that don't traditionally get involved in sports, but, might be interested in something like dance or gymnastics or whatever it might be, yoga, something like that. So extracurricular clubs is one. Oh, and by the way, I did see a question from somebody. This is obviously being recorded, but do make lots of notes if you so wish, but you will have the recording to go back to. Curricular lessons. Now, this can take a few different forms with your curricular lessons. So your curricular lessons, it's during the school day. So it's great for you if you're actually looking to basically have daytime work without getting a day job, or if you're looking for your teachers to have more hours, then this could be a great one for you. Think about whether your activity or service is actually already on the curriculum and whether you can provide curricular provision. Because it is, the school might have you teaching a term of dance lessons. They might have you teaching a term of gymnastics lessons. If they are using PE premium and it is a PE subject, they may use you to upskill their class teachers during curricular lessons while also providing a high quality lesson as well. So think about whether your activity actually falls under a curricular subject banner. And if it doesn't, but it can be taught in a co-curricular way, like drama, for example, can be taught to kind of teach cross-curricular topics and things like that. You might be looking more at kind of the enrichment side of things, which we'll move on to in just a moment. So your enrichment workshops, you know, rather than going in and sort of teaching regular weekly lessons, it might be like a one-off day where you go in and provide a lesson that kind of helps enhance their topic work in some way, or something they're learning about, or perhaps a particular awareness day. You know, a lot of people will go in, and we'll talk about the sort of relevancy of this as well, but people will go in during things like Anti-Bullying Awareness Week, Black History Month, you know, lots of different kind of awareness days that you could potentially provide enrichment workshops on in a cross-curricular way. Now, the more you can be cross-curricular with what you do, the more chances there are that a school can actually find the budget and perhaps be a little bit more creative, if you like, with their budget to get you in for your paid work. Now, I have a little bit of a funny story around this. So when I was an art coordinator in a primary school as part of my primary school teaching career, I really wanted to get in this particular cultural storyteller because it was going to fit really well with the topic we were teaching in Key Stage 1. It was going to fit really well with art because he was going to be doing, you know, Indigenous artwork, and he was going to be bringing in artifacts, and he was going to be doing art with the children as he did his storytelling. And, you know, I thought it was all going to be fantastic. So they sort of said to me, well, Cerys, you haven't got much in your art budget because everyone spent it on Pritt sticks and poster paints and sugar paper. And I was like, all right then. But what we can do is he's doing storytelling. So my head of department, the Key Stage 1 coordinator, she was also literacy lead. She said, I'll use some of my literacy budget. And in my role as Key Stage 1 coordinator, I'll go and speak to the head teacher and the other subject leads as well. So we could bring in elements from the art budget, the music budget, the literacy budget, you know, and it had a geographical, historical context and a citizenship context as well. So you can see where all these different budgets could be brought in. Anyway, the funny part of the story is we're actually having local ITV news in to cover it. And we were having an assembly, a whole school assembly to kick off the day. And so off he went to get changed into his costume, and he came out in front of the whole school assembly with all the little ones at the front in nothing but a loincloth. So I really wasn't sure if I was going to keep my job that day, but I've since heard from a teacher that absolutely loved him, that still works at that school after all this time. And she said, oh, we love him, we get him in every year. So obviously the loincloth wasn't an issue, but do be aware of your uniform policy, obviously. So I like to tell that story just because it highlights the power of being cross-curricular with what you do. If you can fit in with other subjects in some way, you are on to a winner. So the fourth way is delivering Teacher CPD. So I mentioned that it could involve upskilling class teachers while you deliver these high quality exemplary lessons, but it could also mean putting on courses for teachers, you know, putting on staff inset days, delivering a little taster in a staff meeting, something like that. So delivering Teacher CPD is like an additional angle, if you like, to what you do that could get you in to schools, just a different way of doing it. And number 5, you might not be looking to get into schools or nurseries at all. You know, you might just simply be looking to fill your community classes, your weekend sports classes, your weekend dance schools, your evening classes, you know, your community centre classes, your leisure centre classes, whatever it is. So you can actually partner with schools to promote your community classes. And I would argue this is one of the fastest ways to fill your community classes. And it's great if you're opening up a brand new venue in a brand new location. You know, this is what I used to do in my dance business, is that whenever I opened up in a new location, I would go and do some promotions in the local schools. You know, there was this one particular time when I only needed to go and do 2 hours worth of tasters in one local school with years 3 and 4. And before I knew it, I had 40 children wanting to come to my half-term workshop. And at that half-term workshop, I upsold 20 of those children into a whole term's worth of weekly classes. So that brand new venue became completely fully booked within the first 2 weeks of opening. So, you know, this can be a really good way to do it. You know, offer the school something of high value, or the nursery if you've got little ones. Go in and deliver a taster. Give all the children stickers. They love stickers. You know, do it as a bit of a in return for offering them an invitation or a flyer if they allow flyers, or a segment in parent mail so it can go out and be emailed to the parents to promote your classes. So, this is something you should all be thinking about if you've got outside of school classes as well, because the school, I suppose people used to say the church was the pinnacle of the community, but really I see the school as, being a real hub for the community. So it's a really great way of sort of spreading that word of mouth right from the get-go. And the best thing about it is you don't have to worry about any of those darn algorithms that you've probably been battling with on social media. So that's a great one to think about if you've got classes that are happening outside of school. If they're early years classes, go into the local nurseries to promote what you do, and deliver a little taster and then talk to the parents. If you've got school-age children coming to your classes, go into the schools. So those are the 5 ways that I suggest you think about how you would like to work with a school or a nursery. And here are 5 ways that won't help you make personal connections with new schools or nurseries. Unfortunately, I am all about personal connections. Now, it's difficult, isn't it, making a personal connection with a school when the only school you know is the one your children went to. Or like me, maybe you don't have children, and maybe you're not connected to any schools, and maybe you don't have time to figure out whether your best friends, husbands, neighbors, aunts, dog walker has got a connection in your local school that you could potentially find a way in with. We haven't got time for all of that. Many times we don't have these connections. So how do we do it? Through direct marketing. Or how don't we do it through direct marketing? Well, it's going to be a little bit of a waste of time if we're looking to build personal connections, because remember, people buy from people they feel connected to. And there are people in schools and nurseries. They're not these kind of faceless buildings that we're trying to connect with. They are people behind them, and there are real people making key decisions for those educational settings. So it's just worth bearing that in mind. So number 1, you might be surprised to hear this, cold calling. Now, this is just my opinion, but in my opinion, cold calling is not the way to go to make a personal connection, particularly not in schools. Because in schools, if you're looking to make personal connections with subject leads, the subject leads are all teachers. They're all busy teaching while you're cold calling. And the head teachers are most likely going to be in a meeting or busy conducting their daily duties, basically. So it'd be very, very hard to get the person that you actually want to speak to on the phone. And as we know, schools are governed notoriously by gatekeepers who are amazing at their job, those amazing school receptionists, who you won't necessarily be able to get past on your first attempt. I don't know about you, but to me, cold calling just feels really awkward. It's very time consuming. By the time I've psyched myself up to call through people on my list, before I know it's the end of the day and there's not going to be anyone in the school. Look at this guy on the screen. He doesn't enjoy cold calling either. A lot of the kind of methodologies I teach now is because the people that started working with me and the people I started chatting to about this back in sort of 2017 were saying to me, Cerys, I don't want to cold call. There must be another way. So I said, well, actually, there are a lot of times when I got into schools without cold calling. How about I teach you those methods instead? And there is some research out there that shows that sort of less than 5% of schools welcome sales calls these days anyway. A lot of the time when I was trying to call schools, they just said, can you just put this in an email and we'll forward it on to the person that needs to hear it? So I sort of thought, why am I spending all this time psyching myself up on the phone when 95% of them are just going to tell me to email anyway? Why aren't I emailing first? So that's entered into my methodologies. Make it all about you. I touched on this at the beginning. I see this all the time when activity providers send me their emails to look through. I have a group program called the Approaching Schools Academy, and I will give feedback on your emails in the Approaching Schools Academy. And a lot of the time, people are using that first paragraph to talk all about themselves. What happens then is that the school's never heard from you before. They don't know you, like you, or trust you yet. They don't buy from people they don't trust. 2, as I say, they don't really care about you. They do care about their problems. They understand they've got a problem at the moment. And number 3, we have about 8 seconds to impress somebody on email these days. So we have to grab their attention for long enough that they actually read the whole of our emails to see the amazing offer we're making them. So do yourself a favor and don't make the first paragraph all about you. I will come on to what you can do instead of that. Number 3, generic promotional literature. I see providers wasting money on glossy brochures and how thick their paper is going to be and whether it's going to be double-sided and posting out loads of leaflets. it's very impersonal. It doesn't help you make a personal connection. Save those lovely brochures and sort of welcome packs about what you do for when you're in a sales conversation, which happens later down the line. It doesn't happen at the point of marketing. Marketing is all about building a connection. It happens when you're making a sale, and that doesn't happen from the get-go. In most cases, you need to warm these key decision makers up. First of all, they need to understand why they need you before we get to the point of having a conversation about what they need from us. So, spending all that money on brochures, is probably just going to get binned if it's not, you've not made a personal connection before sending it to them. It can be good for follow-up. And as I say, it can be great for sales conversations, but not so great if they've never heard from you before and they don't know why they need your service yet. Number 4 is just talking about what you do. You are not selling dance. You are not selling gymnastics. You're not selling swimming. You're not selling PE. You're not selling school sports, drama, early years phonics, early years play sessions, whatever it is that you will do. Believe it or not, that's not what you're selling. You are basically solving a problem. And we'll come on how to do that in a moment. But, I see people just talking about their services, talking about all the things they could possibly offer a school, and it becomes very overwhelming. And as I say, they don't necessarily know they need dance yet, but they know they've got a problem where the teachers are underconfident with teaching certain elements of PE, which includes dance. Or they don't necessarily know that they need an external gymnastics provider yet, but they do know that the children have got some skills, core skills, that they're not really learning from their teachers at the moment. So, whatever it is that you sell, they don't necessarily realize they need you yet. So don't talk so much about what you do, talk about the benefits of what you do and more about their problem. And number 5, as I mentioned, trying to sell your services. So trying to sell your services straight off the bat without building a connection is a little bit like walking up to somebody in a bar and asking them to marry you before you've even A, had a conversation with them, and B, perhaps gone on a date and perhaps exchange contact details and things like that. So I don't want you to propose to your local schools and nurseries. I want you to go on a date with them. I want you to have conversations with them in your marketing, and I want you to arrange to deliver some form of demo or taster or free experience of working with you first before you attempt to sell, because they're not looking in your shop window yet. So imagine you are walking down the street and you're going to meet a friend for a coffee, and a salesperson runs outside of the shop that you've just walked past, chases you down the street with a pair of jeans saying, "Buy these jeans, they're £50. And you're like, well, hang on a minute. I wasn't in town to buy jeans. I wasn't looking in your shop window. I'm late to meet my friend. I don't know whether the jeans fit me. I don't know whether the color suits me. I don't know how they're going to feel when I get them on. I don't know if I'm going to get lots of compliments when I wear them." There's all these different reasons why you're not going to buy off this person in the street. And it's exactly the same when you approach a school cold. They don't know that they need you yet. They weren't necessarily looking in your shop window. They weren't necessarily looking for a service like yours. Yes, they most probably need it, just like you most probably needed those pair of jeans. But the selling tactics put you off. And this is exactly the same. Is, you think of this analogy next time you're tempted to try and sell something in your email. And by the way, offering a discount is selling. Talking about your programs and services is selling. We need to make this offer first. We need to allow them to try it, to see how the children engage with us, to see how we deliver outcomes to the children, to see how we deliver impact for the school or the setting. So that's one thing to really, really bear in mind. Now, the reason this entered into my kind of methodology, if you like, was because of some of the real world experiences I had in my dance business. And I'll come on to this when I start teaching you my framework. So if those are all the things that I suggest you perhaps don't do to start making a personal connection with schools, what should you do? The future of making personal connections with new schools and nurseries. What does that look like then? Well, it's really important, first of all, that your communication is relevant, useful, and valuable. So this is what I like to call my RUV triangle. You've heard of a love triangle? This is a RUV triangle, RUV. So write that down. Relevant, useful and valuable. And this is what I want you to ask yourself next time you send a communication to schools. So what do I mean by being relevant then? I've done a lot of videos recently about this, actually. Those of you who are in my free group, the Primary Activity Provider Business Club, you might have seen one of these videos where I was talking about how you can ensure your next communication is relevant. So make it personalized. I don't know about you, but I never read emails these days that say "to whom it may concern," "dear sir or madam," "dear sirs," or don't even address me by my name at all. So do make sure you're doing your research here and you are personalizing it. This goes a long way to getting those gatekeepers to forward your email on if it is personalized. Now, seasonal or educational current events. So you will probably know the premise of seasonal marketing. All the commercial brands out there do it. We know there's loads of chocolate around Easter. We know the Coca-Cola truck comes around at Christmas. We know seasonal marketing works for the big commercial brands. How do we make it work from an educational point of view? We look at current events. We look at awareness days. We look at celebration events. We look at the time of the year. And we look at how we can time our campaigns in with these things so they're timely and relevant, so that a key decision maker is more compelled to get back to you now rather than later down the line. Imagine if you were doing something Halloween themed and they came back to you and said, "This sounds great, but really busy until Christmas. Can you do it next year?" And you'd be like, "Well, I can't do it next year because it's Halloween themed. I've got to do it now." So this is about compelling people to get back to you, making it timely and relevant. Those of you who follow me on social media, you'll see that one of my clients in the Approaching Schools Academy spoke to a head teacher just yesterday, and she'd been following them up since October and has only just now won the contract to deliver drama in that school. And she said her conversation with the head teacher was all about the relevancy and how, you could send an email one week and it's not relevant, so nobody gets back to you. Send an email the next week, it's more relevant to them, or the next term, and it's more relevant to them, and they get back to you this time. So this is why I always say approaching schools and nurseries is not a one and done thing. You need to do it multiple times to start piquing different people's interests at different times of the year. My clients are sending up to 6 campaigns per year and following all of those up. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Useful. If it's useful, it's going to be educational in some way. It's going to be authoritative. How do we speak with authority? We solve problems. We communicate using the language that these key decision makers are using. We use language from the EYFS if we're early years. We use language from kind of Ofsted reports if we are Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, etc. And it solves a problem. Okay, it's going to attract their attention. If they feel like we understand their problems, they're going to be much more likely to buy from us. Studies show they're going to be 70% more likely to buy from us. Is it valuable? Does it offer to demonstrate outcomes and impact for free? Okay, this is super important. Now, this is where some of you are going to feel a little bit of resistance to my framework, because you're going to think, oh no, Cerys is often asking me to offer all my services for free. Not at all. I'm not asking you to give away any services for free. What I'm asking you is to offer a limited number of demonstrations so you can demonstrate what your paid services would be like. Okay, so it's not your services I'm asking you to offer free. But as I say, the reason this came into my methodology, if you like, is because when I was first starting out in my dance business and didn't know a lot about kind of the differences between marketing and selling, I was just trying to sell a dance club to a school for like £3 a week. And the schools didn't even have to pay it. It would be for the parents to pay. But I had this one particular school that I really wanted to get into because I knew a couple of the teachers there and they thought the dance club would be great. But when they spoke to the head teacher and the PE lead about it, they didn't want to put a dance club on the timetable because, in their words, the children at their school were not enjoying dance, and the children in their school weren't interested in dance whenever it was taught as part of the curriculum. So therefore, they're not going to put it on the extracurricular timetable because there's no point, because no one's going to sign up. And I spent 2 years trying to get into this school, trying to bang my drum with my £3 a week dance club that the schools didn't even have to pay for. The parents had to pay. And no, kept getting, met with this resistance. Our children simply aren't interested in dance. And then I was on a business and marketing program. It had nothing to do with working with children. It had nothing to do with working with schools. There was nothing like that out there before the Approaching Schools Academy. But it was good from a marketing principles point of view. And I learned a lot, but I still needed to try and test this. I still needed to figure out whether these theories would actually work with my business, which is very specifically about approaching schools and partnering my dance teachers with schools and nurseries. So my mentor at the time was very, very heavily into the law of reciprocity. And, the idea of the amount of value you give is the amount of value you're going to get back, and, providing free tasters and things like that. And as I say, she was more working with people that were working with adults in the fitness sector. But I thought, well, I'll see if it can work for me for approaching schools. So I decided to offer a free taster to the next 10 schools that contact me. And actually really going on the law of reciprocity, I just decided to go a bit wild and offer them a whole free day. I'm not saying you have to offer a whole free day. Many of my clients just do a 20-minute assembly, something like that. But I did a whole free day for 10 schools just to see if I could get in some, And this school that I've been trying to get into for the last 2 years that had told me that their children simply weren't interested in dance got straight back to me, bit my hand off and said, yes, please, we'll have a whole free day. And I was like, oh, what have I done? This is, I can't believe I've done this, because they've already told me their children aren't interested in dance. But obviously I went and did a good job anyway. And what happened next was nothing short of miraculous, really. It was a complete 360 turnaround, because this school that had told me their children simply weren't interested in dance, the teachers got really excited about the dance lessons, and the teachers decided they wanted to book a secret after school dance club for the teachers so that they could surprise their end of school assembly with like a diversity style flash mob routine. And they said to me, Cerys, we can't just get you in for the teachers. That would be really unfair on the children. So, and we can't do after school. So how about you do before school? That's really going to solve my parent parking issues if you do a before school club. So, oh, and by the way, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 both loved it. So could you do 2 morning clubs? So I'm like, yes, yeah, absolutely. And then they're like, well, what about our gifted and talented children? We've got the school games coming up. There's an opportunity to perform. Maybe you could put together a performance piece and you could teach during curricular lessons. Could you do 2 full afternoons per week for the rest of the year? Yes, absolutely. But now I've got to hire a new teacher on board to take on some of this work. So suddenly I was taking orders, I wasn't selling. I had no awkward selling conversations. Yes, they wanted to know how much it cost, but that was just a formality, and they agreed to all of my terms if I could come in and do all of this work. And do you see the power suddenly of delivering a free taster? Like I said, you don't have to do a whole day, you might just do an hour or half an hour, but offering a free taster can really switch somebody's mindset, and it was because the head teacher saw a buzz around the corridors. It's because the PE lead saw the children practicing their moves out in the playground. It was making an impact on the school like dance never had before. So of course now suddenly selling was the next logical step. So this is why this has entered into my methodology. If you're still feeling resistance after I tell you that story, imagine it this way. If you were going to go and do a teaching interview, you were going to be asked to teach a demonstration lesson. You're not going to get paid for that interview, but the paid work is on its way when you get the job. So think of it that way. So if you want to get into new schools or nurseries, you've got to stop. Now, that might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but what I mean by that is STOP is an acronym for my system, my STOP system framework. STOP, it all stands for different things. So notebooks at the ready, because S stands for solving a problem for the school or nursery with your solution. We are no longer using that first paragraph to talk all about ourselves. We're using it to solve a problem. How do we know what problems schools have? Check out some of the recent Ofsted reports. Have a look. See what schools are generally struggling with. Think about what the benefits are of what you offer. If you offer dance and it helps children get more confident, what's the opposite of that? Are they struggling with their self-esteem at the moment? Is that due to the impact of the recent lockdowns, for example? Does that make it timely and relevant that you are going in to solve this particular problem? As I said, the teachers might have problems with their confidence, knowledge and skills of teaching your subject. Do you go in and solve a problem for that through some form of Teacher CPD? You know, if you are providing a subject, you know, so I noticed some of your early years providers. So what is it that the children are struggling with from a development point of view that you can come in and help with? So essentially, what do the children not have because you're not there yet? You know, that's the problem. And we want to address that problem before we talk about any benefits at all. T stands for testimonial. So I want you to always include relevant reviews or testimonials of your work, and include those in the main body of your email or in your letter. Don't leave them to go and click on a website to find them. They will not click. Schools, by the way, don't really like clicking on links, so don't bother putting them in there. Links can also trigger the spam filter if you have too many of them. I had a school that I'd been working with every single term. Our dance teachers had been delivering dance lessons for 8 years, and they still would not click on a link to view my invoice. That's how much schools don't like clicking on links. So have your testimonial in the main body of your email or in your letter. And this brings in a bit of the bandwagon effect. What do I mean by the bandwagon effect? Essentially FOMO, the fear of missing out, you know. And if you have got reviews from other schools or nurseries you've worked with, tell them who they're from, because chances are they'll know that local head teacher, and there'll be a bit of extra credibility for you, because they'll think to themselves, oh, if it's good enough for their school, it's good enough for our school as well. Or they'll think, that nursery's got them in, I better get them in as well, you know. So it brings in this bandwagon effect. So make sure you've got relevant reviews in there. If you haven't worked with a school or a nursery yet, use one from a parent that backs up what you're talking about. If you're talking about children's confidence and self-esteem, make sure you're using a testimonial about how you helped a child with their confidence and self-esteem. For example, I mean, I use that example a lot because that's what my dance business was all about. It was all about helping children get more confident. And what I love about the work I do now is I'm still doing that, but through the ripple effect of working with all of you. So O, look how shocked she is. O stands for your offer. I want you to create a compelling offer for a limited number of schools or nurseries. I mentioned why this is entered into my methodology. I mentioned how this can really flip a school's mindset, particularly if they've got preconceived ideas about what you do from, you know, I don't know, from one of your competitors or something like that. You know, maybe they already had a gymnastics teacher in once and it was a disaster because they couldn't manage behavior, and they're wondering how you will be any different. Well, they've got to see a demonstration of how you do that, how you deliver outcomes, how you manage a class, and how the children react to you. Very important. And if you were worried that this means you're going to have to go out and do 100 free tasters, it doesn't. You might simply make this available for the next 5 schools or nurseries that get in touch with you. So breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not asking you to give all your services away for free. I'm not asking you to do this for everyone, but make it available. You know, this helps with your kind of your urgency and people getting back to you on time as well. And the final one of my STOP system framework is P. Be persistent with your follow-up strategy. So you need to have persistence. I actually talk about the 3 Ps. So if it wasn't obvious enough, I talk about persistence, I talk about perseverance, and I talk about patience. And those are your 3 Ps of following up. My Approaching Schools Academy members know those very well, because you do need to have persistence. You do need to follow up. Following up can boost your chances of getting a response by 80%, so studies show. So if you want to boost your chances of getting a response by 80%, you have to follow up. You no longer need to worry about pestering a school, because chances are busy key decision makers expect to be followed up. Yeah, because what happens when they receive your email and little Jimmy has just fallen over in the playground and they think this looks great, I know all the other providers always follow me up the following week, I'll be in a much better position to answer this email next week. When they follow me up, I'll leave it till then. What happens when you don't follow up is you've missed that opportunity. So you need to be prepared to follow up. You need to be prepared to follow up your follow-up. You need to be prepared to follow up multiple times. Don't go to all this trouble of listening to me for an hour waffling on if you're not going to follow up your email. It's going to be a waste of your time. So you do need some persistence. It's really, really super important. And you know, a lot of the times it was my second or my third email in a campaign that was getting the results. not the first one. You know, too many people give up after the first one and assume that a school isn't interested, and that's not the case. There's a lot of sometimes there's a lot of mindset work to do around this, and that's why we have a mindset expert that works alongside us in the Approaching Schools Academy as well. You know, because this is a point where providers get a little bit stuck, and I just want to urge you on the importance of doing the follow-up and doing the follow-up in the right way. So just to recap on that, then, that STOP system framework. S, you're solving a problem with your solution. T, you're including a testimonial, a relevant review of your work in the main body of your communication. O, you're providing an offer, you know, an experience of work with you so you can demonstrate how you will deliver outcomes and how you create impact for the school or the nursery. And P, have persistence. Make sure you follow up, and don't go to all that trouble of slaving over your email copy if you're not going to follow it up. So before we jump to Q&A, which, you know, get ready in the chat box if you have got questions. Do obviously feel free to pop them down in the chat box, but just want you to leave you with this thought, really. And I want you to think about the fact that there are 100 providers here either watching live or currently watching on replay on the recording. On an average primary school on roll, there are 281 children in an average primary school. If you all went out and used the methods from today to get just one new school each, which is very, very doable, by the way, just to go out and get one new school each, we will be having a collective impact on an extra 28,100 children's lives. How amazing is that? You know, yes, you're here to grow your business, but hopefully you're also here to have an impact on children's lives. If we all go out and get one new school each, you know, imagine if you went out and got 5 new schools. Yeah. Imagine the collective impact we are having through this ripple effect of all taking these notes on this webinar and all going off and getting one new school as a result of it. How fantastic would that be? So that's just what I want to leave you with, because that's what, in my opinion, that's what it's all about. It's all about impacting children's lives. So I have a couple of things for you to sort of take away with you as a result of working with me today before we go to Q&A. So if you go to this website, which is ceryskeneally.com/freebies, you get to take part in my Approaching Schools scorecard. And this will tell you how likely you are to make sales from schools or nurseries this year. Okay, it's like a quiz basically, and it scores you on 4 key areas, and it helps you to identify very quickly within about 3 minutes where your knowledge gaps are. You know, based on what you've learned today and based on what perhaps you still need to learn about getting into schools and nurseries, and based on perhaps what your current strategies are as well. So it will score you on how well you do with your email content. It will score you on how well you do with your email delivery. It will score you on how well you deliver your sort of initial visit if you're doing a demo or a taster, something like that. And it will also score you on your mindset, which, remember, is also incredibly important. So if you are curious to find out how well your current strategy stands up against my methods, use my methods as a benchmark and take this quiz. It takes 3 minutes. And it's completely free. So ceryskeneally.com/freebies. For those of you who are here live with me, let me just pop the link, because my name, let's face it, is horrendous to spell. So if you go to that website that I've just put in the chat box, you'll be able to take your free quiz, and you know, it's like an assessment tool. It will very, very, very quickly help you audit how well your process currently stands up. And I love to hear from you. I love to hear from people who have listened to what I have to say and used it to inspire the growth of their business in some way. Love to hear when you get a response from schools. I literally do a virtual happy dance for all my clients. So this is where you'll find me to come and let me know. This is where I hang out the most. So it's a Facebook group. It's free to join. It's called the Primary Activity Provider Business Club. You can search that name on Facebook, or again, I will pop it in the chat for those of you who are currently joining me live. There we are. That should work. And I am super happy to answer all of your questions. Now, hopefully I haven't dumbfounded you all, and you will have questions for me, because I really do thrive off that kind of live coaching element. And this is your opportunity basically to ask them. So I do hope that the information that I've given you was helpful today. Do let me know your feedback on that. And if you have questions, do feel free to write those down right now, and I'm happy to answer those for the next 10 minutes. James, does it matter how you send the emails, i.e. like from your Gmail account, or would you use a software specializing in sending emails? This is a fantastic question. So I wouldn't send from a Gmail address, because those can end up in spam. But you can send from a Gmail account if you're using a mail merge process. So a lot of my clients use something called GMAS, for example. The thing about some CRM mailing systems, and this is not all of them, but this is a lot of them, is that sometimes they block the role-based email addresses. So sometimes if you've got email addresses which are like admin at or office at, sometimes those email addresses get blocked by the CRMs that you're using. So you just need to pay attention as to what the kind of the terms and conditions are around cold emailing. So I generally teach my clients to use a mail merging process, because then they can cold email to role-based email addresses without getting those problems. Some of the CRMs will let you do it, but you have to upload the addresses one by one. So just depends kind of what type of system you're using. Now, obviously, if you are using a tool to do this, it's really good because you can see open rates and click-through rates and things like that. So it's really good for you to get an understanding of whether your email is actually hitting the inbox. It's also really good for sending en masse. It's really good for personalizing. But yeah, you do just need to be aware that some of the CRMs will block some of these role-based email addresses. And, you know, for some of them, it's against their terms and conditions to send cold email. We're absolutely fine sending cold email to schools and nurseries, by the way, because they're essentially organizations. They're not individual consumers. So we're okay with that, but just be aware of some of the nuances of some of those automatic mailing systems that are out there. And yeah, like you said, like sending from a Gmail address can encounter problems. But for a lot of my clients, they use a tool called GMAS that sits inside their Gmail account, and they can just mail merge from there. But like I say, that would be with their, sorry, I didn't say, what I didn't say is if you were using a Google account, you would have to have your professional domain name, email address pulled through, imported into that account. So we're getting a bit techie, but hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Grace, do you send email directly to subject leaders in schools, or do you send them to admin reception first? So what's a really good idea, Grace, is your subject leads are the influencers. They are the ones that are going to get hold of your email and really want to get your free taster in, and they're the ones that will then go and lobby the senior leadership team on your behalf, because they're the one, they don't necessarily have the purse strings. Some of them have autonomy over their budget, but some of them don't. The difficulty you will have is that you won't often find out the individual email addresses for these subject leads, so you will very often be sending to the school office. But one trick you can do is you can put FAO in the subject line, and you can put either the job title or the name of the person you're looking to reach, and sort of between 75 and 85% of the time that email will be forwarded on if you do that. So yes, for the attention of that subject lead, or if you can't find the subject lead, then the head teacher, because at least you're then personalizing it with somebody's name, and you'll always find the head teacher's name on the website. But you're quite right, you may sometimes only find the office email address, and that's what we're up against sometimes. But yeah, try the FAO trick in the subject line. Steph, hi Cerys, do you have an example of an email that you have used to approach schools and nurseries? Yes, but they're all inside my paid program, the Approaching Schools Academy. But if you come on one of my free challenges in September, I will teach you how to structure your email for success, so that you can see the structure for yourself. And I actually think it's far more powerful if you can understand how to structure the email, so you can write it again and again, because a template is only good enough the first time you send it. It's far better if I teach you how to write a good email every time, so you can consistently approach schools all year round. So that's what my academy is about. But I can give you a little taster of that on my next free challenge, which will be happening end of September. Hannah, with the follow-up email, do you still follow up when a school have already responded to an email with a no thanks? No, you don't. You leave them alone. If they've said no thank you, we need to respect their wishes. Good question, but no, it is only to the schools that haven't responded yet. 2, how do these follow-up emails look? For example, do they use the stop format? Okay, so for your follow-up emails, they're much simpler. So you already have the stop format in your initial email. Include that initial email with your follow-up below your follow-up. And in your follow-up, just think of a reason why you're following up. Hi there, I just wanted to ensure you got my last email because there are only 3 dates left to deliver demonstration lessons this term. Hi there, I just wanted to make sure you got my email because there are only 2 weeks left before the deadline I gave you. Hi there, I just wanted to make sure you got my email because I'm in the area delivering free tasters to all the other local nurseries. I wondered if you still wanted one. Give them a bit of FOMO. And you can always segue into your previous email by saying, here's the information again in case you missed it, something like that. And you said, do you have an example email to share? Again, all my examples are in the Approaching Schools Academy, or I can teach you how to do it for free on my next free challenge. You're welcome. Let's see what other questions we've got. Christopher, we will be offering after school clubs which parents sign their children up to for the year, enabling us to spread the cost for parents into a smaller PCM standing order. In your experience, is that an attractive proposition to schools? So which parents sign up to their children for the year, enabling us to spread the cost for parents? Yeah, it can be. I mean, the thing is, wherever you can get a school to give you a commitment up front, schools actually prefer things like, signing off agreements, signing off budgets on a yearly basis, because it's less, they know where they're at for the year. Then they know they've got a guaranteed club on a Monday or whatever it is. So yeah, I've not done it that way, Christopher, from my experience, but yes, just in general, getting commitment up front is better for you and it's better for the school. And like you say, if that's actually spreading cost to parents, it's better for the parents as well. Alice, I understand your advice about not selling or talking about myself, but how do I make sure the school or nursery know what I'm offering? I'm science, so not as mainstream as dance or sports. So science is incredibly mainstream from the point of view that it's a core subject. And that a lot of teachers, the stats out there show that a lot of class teachers are not confident with teaching STEM subjects and science. I hate the thought that they expect something different to what I actually do. No, so what you would do, Alice, is when you make your offer is for a science specific taster lesson, if you like. And it might be fun science on the extracurricular timetable, or it might be science as part of the curriculum, but you offer your taster during the school day so that it can be used as a taster on the curriculum, and then the school can decide whether they want this for fun clubs or whether they want this for curricular work. It's a great one for adding variety to the extracurricular timetable. It's a great one for enriching learning. I do have clients that offer science and other STEM subjects as well, so don't worry about that. But what you want to do is, whenever we present an offer and we talk about the taster session, or the taster lesson in this case, we talk about the benefits. And you want to draw out all of the benefits of you coming in and doing science as opposed to coming in and doing other subjects. So that's what you really want to highlight. Everyone should be giving a few bullet points about the benefits of their taster lesson when they offer it. So if you do it in that way, and if you think about what problems a school might be experiencing because you're not there teaching science yet, that's the hook. That's what gets them thinking, oh yeah, I didn't realize I needed an external provider to do science, but now that I get that it's going to help the teachers feel more confident, it's going to help the enrich the children's learning, and they're going to have a fun extra variety on the extracurricular club timetable, that's really going to help my school. So suddenly they understand the benefits much better than just simply is science, so you're selling the benefits of science. So like I say, it's not about avoiding the fact that you're delivering science completely. It's just about remembering you're talking about a problem first, and then you're telling them it's a science-based offer, and these are the benefits of having my level of science in your school. Does that sort of clear that up for you? I'm not sort of saying ignore the fact that you're doing science completely, but just more about the benefits and not just that it's science, if that makes sense. You're welcome, Hannah, and you're welcome, Christopher. So are there any last minute questions before we wrap things up? You're welcome, Alice. Leon, you mentioned Ofsted reports as a way to understand the problems as particular school is experiencing. Are there any other sources we could look at? Yeah, it depends on your subject, Leon. Leon, I don't know if you are Leon in my world or if you're Leon, another Leon. If I'm right in thinking you're Leon who does PE, then you want to be looking at things like the PE premium document, so the guidance for schools to spend, because they actually use certain words and phrases with those sort of conditions of grant. So they talk about things like upskilling class teachers in their confidence, knowledge and skills. The document talks about helping support and involve the least active pupils. It talks about lots of different things, a kind of broad scope for what the reasons that they might spend their PE premium on sports. So pay close attention to that document and use the words and phrases from that document in your marketing to schools as well. But let me know if you're a different Leon and you're not doing sports. You're welcome, Helen. Okay, do let me know if there are any more questions. We've got about 1 minute of this webinar left. Oh, I'm sorry, you're a different Leon. What subject do you do, Leon? So I can give you a little example. You're essentially looking to see if there are any kinds of documents out there that might be like government documents or something related to your subject. It's all that kind of thing. Oh, business and finance. Okay, so one of my clients delivers finance workshops in schools. So you'd really be looking at what, you'd be looking at the sort of PSHE side of things, the citizenship side of things, and you'd be looking at the maths side of things as well. So you'd be looking at any kind of government documents in relation to those, basically. So have a little look at those. Helen, can we buy into one-to-one sessions to see us through this term? Is that one-to-one sessions with me? Let me know what you mean, Helen. You're welcome, Leon. Helen, yes, please. Helen, go to my website. So I won't spend time sort of talking about that now. There is a one-to-one offer available on my website. So go to ceryskeneally.com and have a little look. Helen, sorry, late to the party with this. No problem at all. And as I say, in September, which will also be a great time for contacting schools, I will be running a free challenge too. Okay, thank you everybody for your questions. I hope that was useful to you. I hope you've made loads of notes. People always accuse me of having to go and like buy a new notebook or something after these webinars, but I always think buying stationery is no bad thing. I like buying new stationery. So I hope you've got lots of notes. The recording will be available shortly for you to refer back to. And I'm really looking forward to hearing who's got into schools and nurseries off the back of this webinar. That's what I really want to know. Really, 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 really love hearing your results and celebrating with you. So do pop into the Primary Activity Provider Business Club group and let me know as soon as you get responses. You're welcome, Amelia. You're welcome, Hannah. You're welcome, Grace. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. Those of you who've joined me live. Thank you, those of you who are currently watching the recording. And good luck as you start to approach your local schools and nurseries. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.